This episode starts off really well cause it doesn't waste any time and it continues exactly where episode 1 left off. From the place where we last saw Boyd and of course one of the most mysterious people that we've ever seen in the entire series. Of course, that's the old man who was chained up for some reason that we still don't know about. The first thing the old man does is remind Boyd of his promise to kill him if he helped him out. And he asks Boyd if he's from the town, which means, bare minimum, the old man knows about the town. The old man tells us something which is really dark, but it's really interesting at the same time. He says, I always thought the town was the worst part until I went through the tree. And it makes you wonder if the tree is the only way to get to wherever this dungeon is. And he also says that when you get trapped by the trees, that's when they get you. Whoever they are. We don't know who they are. We don't know what they are just yet. A theory that's been going around a lot has definitely been confirmed, and that's that this old man is in fact Martin, and more than likely it means he's the same Martin whose name was written on the map in Boyd's office. But considering Boyd doesn't know him, it means this guy disappeared into the woods long before Boyd ever came to farmland, and Boyd's been there for like 3 years. So Boyd starts banging on his chains with the rocks and trying to get him free. And he sees that the old man who we now know is called Martin has a marine tattoo. And it makes me wonder if the other guy who died in the dungeon was also a marine. Cause we know that Boyd used to be a marine as well, him and Abby. Boyd says they have to leave before the monsters come back, and the old man tells him, you think those things that come out of the woods did this? The old man then says that there's much worse creatures outside of the town, and that those vampire things are just the tip of the spear. And that's a scary thought to have, but and they've really been hyping up these creatures. I really want to see what the hell is out there. So back at the diner, we see Donna and Kenny holding everybody hostage with guns and trying to keep them inside, and only after all that drama from this episode and the last one does Donna decide to start talking about how everyone sees the tree when they come to farmland for the first time. And it really makes you think about how there's obviously way easier ways to prove to people that this place is mythical or magical or whatever the fuck is going on than just pulling out a shotgun and forcing them to go to your diner without any proof at all. The asshole guy who was bullying Elgin in the last episode, he ends up taking Kenny hostage and steals his gun after somebody was getting killed starts screaming outside, and that causes everyone to be off guard. So obviously he uses that opportunity and he takes the gun from Kenny. He takes Kenny hostage and says he wants to go outside and see for himself if there's actually monsters out there. He then points out that the screams might have been faked, which is a good point, because from the diner they can't actually see anything. They aren't seeing a body or anybody getting killed or anything like that. So he says it could have been Donna and the others who put the tree on the road to block people in the first place. After all, Donna was the same person who blew out their tires with the shotgun. And yeah, everything he said was a completely logical take, to be honest. I can't disagree with anything he said. After all, nobody's shown him proof of any of that stuff. But I think Donna and the rest should have let him go outside and let him die out there alone, cause this is the kind of guy who can easily cause a lot of trouble for people, and I definitely think that he's gonna do that in future. I think Donna and the rest should have just let him go outside and leave him to die alone. And we get to see a smiling creature once again, and this time he's getting into the bus and he starts fiddling around with this steering wheel, and it reminds me of how a kid might play with a toy, but maybe he used to be a bus driver before he became a monster or whatever he is, and he's remembering his previous life. This is the same scene with the old couple from the trailer, and of course, as expected, they get taken out very easily by that same smile creature. It was crazy to me how Fatima was acting really irrationally in this episode, to the point where she was walking outside at nighttime like, yo, go back home, man. That's crazy. Yeah, I know that she was trying to help the people people from the bus, but after all this time living here, you've got to accept that some people, they simply can't be helped. The scene when she wanted to sneak out from the back of the building of Boyd's office while the demons were just standing by the front door was crazy to me, and I couldn't believe how anyone with full knowledge of the situation could be acting so dumb. She was risking her life and Alice's life as well, and was overall just acting really crazily. But if this leads to a plot line of her being so tired of this life and trying to find a way to live, then I'll be very glad that this happened. There's this couple that gets killed during the Fatima and Ellie scene because they got approached by the monsters and thought they were gonna help them. Too bad for them, but that's life in Fromland. There's another couple who get held up in a gas station, but luckily for them, there was a talisman in there. It's worth pointing out that even though we saw someone knocking at their door and saying that they're from a bus and not the bus, we don't actually see their bodies. So maybe they were humans and that couple didn't actually die. But who knows? I don't know. But I wonder if that will be relevant or those guys will just get killed off screen. It'd be interesting if Boyd's town gets infiltrated by a monster and this scene was the catalyst for that plot. It would be interesting. And so the three guys under the Matthews collapsed house. You got this guy from the trailers, and he was in the last episode as well. And he was one of the people who helped Elgin. He ends up dying supposedly from his injuries, but knowing that this house collapse was definitely caused by some entity in Fromland. Maybe there was something more to his death. I don't know. And one of the most popular theories in the community ends up being disproven because the bartender gets eaten and torn apart by one of those monsters. But I guess in theory he could have still been a spy for another human settlement, but considering he's already been killed off, it just seems really unlikely to be revealed that he was a mole at this point. And something which really didn't make any sense to me is that Jim actually survives the night, which is crazy to me, and I still can't believe it. The monster that killed the bartender seemingly doesn't even see Jim, even though they're so close to each other, and it really requires a lot of suspension of disbelief. But anyways, Jim survives the collapse and then he survives the night. But we already knew that because of the scene in the trailer where he talks to Tabitha. So I already came in assuming that he was gonna live, but I also thought that the bartender was gonna live as well. Christy talks to her fiancé and she mentions that Christy's been missing for 6 months. We don't get confirmation from Christy about how long she's been in Fromland, so whether or not time is moving differently in this place, that's still unclear. We don't know about that yet because she hasn't confirmed or disproven anything yet. There's a really awkward scene between her fiancé and Kenny, and she just ignores Kenny. Yeah, which was weird. It was awkward. I wonder what's the point of bringing her to Fromland. It could be that Fromland itself wants to punish Christy, specifically for some reason, by making a fiancé die in front of her eyes or something like that, but I don't know. It's crazy to me that the writers would ship Christy and Kenny so heavily and then bring her fiancé out of nowhere, but I guess it's important for the drama. I do wonder if Kenny being rejected will make him turn to the dark side. The existence of Christy's fiancé definitely feels like a last minute addition because if I'm correct, we didn't even know that she had a fiancé until episode 9. So yeah. And then Victor and Tabitha. It really surprised me that when Victor was saving Tabitha, he didn't have a talisman, but I guess thinking about it, he wouldn't have had time to get one from the colony house attack. Because he had to get away, and not get killed by the monsters. Anyways, they end up going to a truck that Victor says he uses sometimes, and he tells us that the things in the truck are things he collects from cars that come to Fromland. Tabitha asks him how he came to Fromville, and Victor just dodges the question and mumbles something about his mother. I don't know. Makes you wonder if Victor came to Fromland with his mom, but then what's his relation to the guy in the picture? And what about the doll? Because I was thinking that the old man was his dad and the doll belonged to his sister, but Now that he's talking about his mom and he didn't mention anybody else, maybe the doll belonged to his mother. I don't know. I thought it belonging to his sister would make a lot of sense, but yeah, maybe it's his mother's, or maybe he just saw it in a vision. I don't know. There's still a lot to be revealed about that doll and Victor himself. The old woman from the bus, once again, is shown a lot in the episode. She really seems to be handling everything way better than most people ever could. Maybe she used to be a hippie, because she definitely gives off that carefree vibe that hippies have. Julie consoling Julie by telling her it's gonna be alright when Julie thinks that her dad just got killed, and she comforts him. She comforts her. So yeah, and the crying from Julie in this scene is really good, and it feels really realistic. At least to me, it definitely feels realistic. The old man ends up cutting Boyd and seemingly infects him with the same worms that were swimming in the man's body. And he says some cryptic shit about my blood is your blood. I had no idea what the hell was going on. We also saw that there was at least one other person who was chained up in the dungeon with Martin. And that implies that the passing of the worm blood is the same thing that happened to Martin many years ago, if not decades before this. But I don't know what's so special about the worms. Some people said that Sarah may also have them, and that's how she got that message way back in season 1 saying, "Kill the boy," inscribed onto her arm in season 1. And that's a really crazy thing to consider, but hey, maybe that's the case. I don't know. Boyd showed the old man the talisman, and he didn't have much of a reaction to it. It's almost like he already knows about the talismans and that they can stop the vampire mimic creatures. But the way he talks implies the talismans don't stop these other creatures, which is scary, because it makes me really curious about these other creatures, and that's probably why they put in that line in the episode. The way the music box starts playing and Martin says they're coming, it's really intriguing and makes me wonder why exactly the music box started playing when they're coming, and if the music box was a real item that was in the dungeon, or if it's some sort of delusion. I don't know. There's multiple times where it seems like the old man has some sort of mental powers. The first time is when he somehow throws the rope down to Boyd, and the other one is when he asks Boyd if Abby was right. What if it's all a dream? And did he really die like that, or is he just exhausted? Because that was a really quick death if he's actually gone. And it's crazy that they would take him out in less than 2 episodes, man. Really crazy. Anyways, when Boyd leaves the dungeon, he finds himself in the forest and the ruins of seemingly the same building that he was in. So makes you wonder, is it time travel, or is the dungeon hidden somehow by magic? Like, I have no idea what is going on. It's crazy. Anyways, Boyd sees the dog once again, and he follows it because it was obviously leading him somewhere. So, and maybe even to the monsters themselves, because it's right after following the dog that Boyd ends up seeing the monsters. And the same exact thing happened in season 1, where he was following the dog and then he got surrounded by monsters, and that's when he ended up finding the talismans. But for an unexplained reason, when Boyd is hiding from the monsters in this episode, his vision becomes really bad and everything just looks like a blur to him. More than likely it's because of the warm blood from the old man. Tabitha asks Victor about the boy in white, and Victor says the boy in white is his friend, but for a long time he hasn't seen him. She asks him how long he's been here. Victor doesn't answer. I mean, this guy is really so mysterious, and I really want to know everything that he knows. So I get angry when people aren't asking him any questions, but I'm glad Tabitha is actually asking him these things. At that same moment, Boyd finds the truck when he's looking for a place to hide, and Boyd has a talisman, so that'll keep him safe for the night. Elgin shows up out of nowhere, running from the monsters, and he says he's from the bus, but none of these guys know about the bus, so that doesn't help him much. But obviously they think he's a creature, but anyways, eventually they just let him on board. With all these people here on this truck who've learned or know so much about Fromland, it's so crazy to me that they didn't talk about what they knew, what they've figured out about this place. If I was Boyd, the first thing I would have done is ask Victor if he's ever seen someone named Martin or a different type of monster in Farmville itself. And if I was Tabitha, I'd tell everyone about finding the monster's habitat and that the monsters are intelligent, really intelligent, because they've written all sorts of symbols on the walls. And there's even monster children down there too. But nope, they don't do any of that. Victor says that he doesn't trust him. I assume he was talking about Elgin because he was looking right at him when he said that. And considering it seems Elgin already knows something about farmland, that's very interesting to hear from Victor. But it makes me wonder, who exactly was Victor talking to when he said this? Was he talking to Boyd or Tabitha? Both of them? When it comes to the idea of delusions and some sort of mental power, maybe Victor was talking to the boy in white or somebody else that he can see. I don't know. Victor once again alludes to him having some sort of prophetic ability. He says he draws things he sees so he doesn't forget them. He says there's a lot he thought were dreams, but the pictures remembered even when he didn't, which is interesting. The bus driver goes into the bus and finds the body of the old man and the old woman. So yeah, now she knows Donna was probably telling the truth about the monsters, which is good. Morning arrives and Elgin tells everyone that the Matthews house collapsed, and obviously Tabitha gets worried that her family could have been killed in the process, so she runs off to find them to see what happened. We see that Boyd got infected by the bloodworms when the old man cut him, and Boyd seems to be having a reaction to the bloodworms themselves. Victor gives Boyd a really ominous stare. It's almost like Victor has seen this happening before to someone else, or maybe he's had a dream about something like this and that's what he's remembering and he knows it's not a good sign or whatever. Elgin doesn't seem to have noticed, but Victor definitely did. And the episode ends with the scene of the three of them walking through the woods, and I'm surprised that this scene happened so early in the series. I feel like because I saw it in the trailer, I thought it was going to happen way later on, but it's surprising to me. You know, it's good because it means we've got a lot to see. Some scenes could have been better, like with Tabitha and Elgin. If Elgin told her about the house collapsing as soon as he got into the truck, Tabitha could have spent the whole night obsessing over the idea that her family died one way or the other the entire night. It would have been a great way to really double down on how terrifying this place is, but nope, they didn't do any of that. They didn't have Elgin reveal any of that until the sun came up, which is really a wasted opportunity. I also think they should have had a scene where somebody runs out of the diner and gets ripped apart in front of everyone's eyes so everybody can see reality with their own eyes rather than just being told by people you don't even know. You know, I think that they definitely could have more vicious animalistic scenes with the monsters so people know for a fact that, hey, and to really drive to the audience that, hey, these things, they're really dangerous and you could die at any moment in this place. They really need to bring that atmosphere so the people and the audience can see how terrifying those creatures really are. But anyways, this episode raised an insane amount of questions, and with all those questions comes the possibility of so many explanations and therefore all sorts of theories. Anyways, tell me your thoughts on this episode and what happened and your comments about everything that we talked about, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.